So I meant to watch this video yesterday, but as soon as I started watching it, he told me, no, don't watch this. Watch the previous video where we talk about the Fallout lore. So I did that. That was the previous video. Now, we're going to react to all of the vaults of Fallout 3, diving deeper into the Fallout lore of the entire series. And then when we get done with all of the main lore, then we'll go back and we'll go even deeper until we move on to the next series. This one's going to go for a while, I think. Maybe a week, maybe two. We'll see. Every day, every single day, all of them. All right, let's go. Disturbing Vaults of Fallout 3.
Thanks to Amazon's new Fallout series, I've been getting back into the world of Fallout, and I've been working my way through the Fallout games again.
Except I usually play a Fallout game like once a year. The most recent one was Fallout New Vegas. I actually might play Fallout 3. That is the next one. Or maybe Fallout 2, because I actually have never played Fallout 2. I'll probably watch somebody play Fallout 1. I don't feel like playing the first one.
I've always been fascinated by the world building that Bethesda have put into their Fallout games, and that extends to the vaults. Some of the vaults in Fallout were intriguing.
Why is this quality bad?
Some were horrifying, and some were just heartbreaking. In this video, we'll be looking at the vaults of Fallout 3 and the lore behind them. I've recently released the Story Explained video for the story of Fallout 3, and there's tons of sweet lore in that one, so if you haven't checked that out yet, I'd recommend. Yeah,
you can check that out on my channel, or you can just go to this guy's video if you just want to watch the video without my reaction. Link down there in the description.
You do that first. I'm going to get started on playing New Vegas and then Fallout 4 very soon, and I'll have separate videos on the vaults for those games too. I'm also going to be doing a...
Yeah, I highly recommend checking out this guy's channel because he does more than just Fallout stuff. But most of his stuff is not Fallout stuff. He makes really, really good content. I'll probably react to a few more of his videos in the future talking about other video games and lore and things like that.
Law and Order video for each Fallout game, so keep an eye out for those ones. But that's enough of an introduction, let's dive straight in.
Vault-Tec.
So I covered this in the other video, but before the war and before the bombs fell in October 2077, Vault-Tec were awarded a contract by the government to build a load of bunkers. 122 vaults to be exact. But this project pretty much crippled the US government financially for a project that would only see 0.1 of the US population guaranteed a space. Originally named Project Safe House, these vaults would shelter citizens of the United States in the event of a nuclear holocaust, and the idea was that the US would stand a greater chance of repopulation if citizens' long-term survival was ensured. Most of the vaults were completed by 2063, although some construction projects in Washington DC got delayed, such as Vault 108, which suffered a work stoppage. Now, Vault-Tec developed many advanced technologies that allowed these vaults to function, and of course their primary function was to keep humanity alive. Right? Wrong. See, Vault-Tec had
oh no, they wanted to do all kinds of crazy shit. They wanted to create new humans, they wanted to do all these crazy experiments. I don't even know what they were after, man.
Motives with these vaults. Vault-Tec built these vaults as a way to facilitate.
They didn't even have one motive. Like, people within Vault-Tec had a different motive, right? And it was like a bunch of conflicting motives, and nobody even knows who started this whole thing. Was it China? Was it Vault-Tec? Was it the United States government? Who knows?
Human experimentation to test the remaining human population as part of something called the Societal Preservation Program run by a Dr. Stanislaus Braun. Braun placed people in charge of these vaults that were called overseers, and the majority of them were fully aware of the true nature and purpose of these vaults. Braun even threatened the overseers to secure their absolute secrecy in regard to what was going on in the vaults. But the reason for this experimentation was in order to support a much bigger vision.
The Enclave.
In the game, we encounter an antagonistic...
We'll be doing a deep dive into the Enclave very, very soon. Because I want to get a deep dive through the Enclave from the Enclave through the original appearance of them all the way into the latest appearance.
Faction calling themselves the Enclave. They're a paramilitary and they claim to be the remnants of the US government.
Yeah, but nobody in the United States is really voting for them. So they just got their own people voting in, so they're like not really legitimate.
Enclave were a shadow military government which would seize control of the US in the event of nuclear destruction. Their motives were based around Darwinism, survival of the fittest, and you can probably see where this is going. The president of the US, a member of the Enclave, decided to abandon the White House and relocated to a fortified oil rig named Control Station Enclave, which was owned by Poseidon Energy. The Enclave would essentially oversee the human experimentation in the vaults from the oil rig, and that allowed them to control what was happening inside these vaults. The rig was also a control center which the government could continue its war against China. Anyway, 200
Of
years
course
into the
it was.
future, many in the post-nuclear wasteland see them as fascists. Powerful old men
Damn
who didn't want to give
fascists!
up their power. In Fallout 3 at least, we see the Enclave being pursued by the Brotherhood of Steel, another paramilitary organization who were themselves more focused on preserving advanced tech and who would try and ensure proper regulations around its use. The Enclave had a larger plan involving something called the
Like, does the Enclave really think they're the good guys when they look like that? They look like demons.
multi-generational starship, their own way of preserving humanity. Therefore, the Enclave created an interstellar ship which could take the world's best, fittest, and brightest
mothership?
minds to a new planet which was fit for habitation and rebuild civilization from there instead. The Vault's experiments would essentially weed out the weakest and leave the best. But with a brief bit of background out the way, let's now look at the Vaults of Fallout 3 and the experiments contained therein.
Woo! There's a lot of backstory
So let's start
to
with
get
the
us
Lone
going.
Wanderer's home vault. In my script I have home in quotations, as the vault wasn't actually the Lone Wanderer's home vault, but that's something I've covered in the Law and Order video. So Vault 101 wasn't really part of the horrific human experimentation as such. It was designed to support human survival indefinitely, as in the vault was never designed to be opened at all. But it did have an experiment attached, and that was to observe the role of the Overseer, and I guess to see how they would follow their instructions and their directive. The Vault's experiment was coordinated by the Overseer, who was a Vault Tech plant, and the Overseer of Vault 101 created the illusion that there was literally nothing outside the vault other than an irradiated wasteland. They managed to achieve this level of control via falsified radio reports created by Vault Tech, further feeding the narrative that all hope was lost of ever venturing out of the vault and onto the surface. The next
Like, didn't that happen in the 100 also? That's a good show. Highly recommend.
Overseers became even more isolationist and dictatorial. Sometime before the game takes place, an Overseer was placed in charge who wanted to open up trade with people on the surface. So a survey team consisting of a then young Mrs. Palmer, the grandmother of Vault 101 resident Jonas, reported their findings. They killed a giant mutated ant and took it back to the vault for examination, and they came across the nearby town of Megaton. 2 Vault residents ended up staying in Megaton. The Overseer in charge at that time went missing, so Alphonse Almodovar took over, and he is the Overseer we see in charge at the time.
Dude, that's so much. That's so much that's just like underlined. Do you find all that out before you get out of the vault, or do you find that out later?
When the game takes place. Alphonse reinforced the strict isolationism of previous Overseers, but despite this, he allowed James and the Lone Wanderer, then a baby, to live in the vault, and James would become the vault's new physician. But the vault, due to it having been open various times, had developed a radroach infestation. And this is when everything kicked off, leading to James using that as cover to leave the vault, and the Lone Wanderer going after him. Radroaches started attacking the security team in the vault, resulting in the deaths of some of the vault dwellers. After the Lone Wanderer leaves the vault, Amata, one of the vault dwellers and Alphonse's daughter, sends out a message to the wasteland asking for the Lone Wanderer to return. Upon returning, the vault has been thrown into disarray. Amata, the Overseer's daughter, has formed a band of rebels, all of them angry at her father for lying to them about the wasteland. They want to stay in the vault but open up the vault to traders. The Overseer is refusing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I think it's probably a bad idea to open it up to the outside because outsiders are known to take over your shit, especially if bandits get involved. Just ask the first area in Fallout New Vegas. I forget what that place is called.
Turns out that the Enclave had turned up and wanted entry into the vault, but Alphonse had refused, which of course was likely the last straw for the rebellion. The Lone Wanderer can force them out by sabotaging the vault's water purification chip, or they can have a friendly chat with the Overseer and convince him to step down. Amata then becomes the Overseer and bans the Lone Wanderer from the vault, rude, and then the Lone Wanderer leaves that vault, never to return again.
That sucks, man. But, you know...
So earlier I mentioned a man named Dr. Stanislaus Braun. As well as being the director of the Societal Preservation Program, Braun was contacted by the US Army to develop a method for the preservation of human life, so he came up with something called the GEC, and this stood for the Garden of Eden Creation Kit, a terraforming module capable of creating life in a barren wasteland. Some vaults got one, some didn't. Anyway, onto Vault 112's experiment. Just before the war broke out in 2077...
Yeah, I want to get to the weird stuff. I don't care about the beginning vault. But, you know, if we're going to talk about all the vaults, we got to talk about the beginning vault. But here we go. We're into the real juicy lore.
Braun escaped to Vault 112. The vault itself was very well hidden, being hidden deep underneath an old garage. Vault 112 was built to house 85 occupants, and it was to be a virtual world. Forever. The vault's overseer was Braun himself. He installed
we got into this one a little bit. This is that like Pleasantville place. I forget what it's called.
Units called Visiontron lounges, and these would contain virtual reality locations, or utopias. It was inside these utopias that Braun would exhibit his sadism. The first of these utopias was a place called Toucan Lagoon, a hot, sunny place, a place of relaxation and tranquility.
Oh, I didn't even know there was more places. I thought it was just that, what is it, Tranquility Lane?
Adjusted the simulation for his own amusement. The other occupants of the vault would be killed in the simulation, much to the delight and amusement of Braun. But alas, Braun would grow bored, so he reset the simulation. This time the simulation would be set at Slalom Chalet. Again, there was much death. Braun was excited at the sight of fresh blood on the white snow, but after 23 years of that, Braun was bored again. So he created a suburbia that he called Tranquility Lane. Now this is where the Lone Wanderer enters into the simulation. Braun comments how despite it being American, the setting reminds him of his hometown. He mentions that the residents seem at home and safe. He then comments at how he loves toying with them and shattering their perfect lives. He disguises himself as a little girl called Betty.
Oh, I thought it was a chick being a little girl. I think I said that in the last video. It's a dude. It's an old man, actually, playing the part of a little girl. That's so fucking creepy. Great writing, by the way. That's awesome. I love that. Very creepy.
Braun, as Betty, asks the Lone Wanderer to mess with the lives of the residents, purely for his own.
Dude, the writing in Fallout 3 is so much better than the writing in Fallout 4. Neither of them can compete with Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas, though.
Enjoyment. And these include things like making a little boy called Timmy cry, breaking up a happily married couple, and eventually killing someone. Braun has complete control over the simulation, and if the Lone Wanderer tries to attack Betty, the Lone Wanderer is instantly killed. Braun's control over the simulation was also such that no one could actually leave the simulation on their own. Braun, after killing his victims, would wipe their memories and restore them, only to torment them again and again and again. Everyone is under the illusion that the simulation isn't that at all. It's 100% real, with them calling the Lone Wanderer crazy when they mention it. Due to one of the pods in the vault malfunctioning, its occupant, old lady...
Well, I can imagine that people would think you're crazy. Because imagine doing that IRL and like, hey, bro, wake up, you're in a simulation. They'd be like, what are you talking about, dude? They wouldn't know. It'd kind of fuck with me, though. If somebody just came up and was yelling that, and then, like, later another guy, you know... If multiple people were saying, that'd be crazy. Just random people out in public. That'd be a fucked up prank to do somebody. Be kind of hilarious, though.
Dithers is aware that it's a simulation, and her avatar asks the Lone Wanderer to do something about it. Braun had a failsafe installed in the simulation. In this case, the failsafe was a military simulation, not purposed for civilian use. Braun installed the failsafe as a way to put an end to the simulation. As a result, Braun's avatar would be left alone in the simulation for eternity. In it, Chinese communist forces invade Tranquility Lane and shoot everyone dead. This kills them all for real, considering they've been alive for over 200 years and are being toyed with by Braun. Killing them via this option seems like a mercy. It's unclear whether or not this vault was Braun's own personal project purely to satisfy his sadistic nature, but it seems that this may have been the case. On the other hand, it could be that Braun genuinely intended to provide a utopia, but got drunk on the power that he had over these people, and ended up abusing that power.
Dude, that's crazy.
Vault
That's
87
so
was, at least in terms of record keeping, pretty secretive. The number of occupants was redacted, as was the duration of the experiment. It had 4 stasis chambers, 3 plasma containment fields, a GEC, along with 6 food processing stations. The nature of this vault's experiments were pretty messed up, to say the least.
Oh, damn.
It was home to the Evolutionary Experimentation Program, run by...
Is this the, like, plant area? Is this with the, like, plant creatures?
...by a Dr. Wayne Merrick and his research team. The subjects would be exposed to something...
Or is that in Fallout New Vegas? I think that's a Fallout New Vegas, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. The one with the plant guys.
...called the FEV, the Forced Evolutionary Virus. In 2073, before the Great War and during the Resource Wars, the US were increasingly concerned at China's planned use of bioweapons on the front lines of Anchorage, and so the US set up research on a countermeasure or a potential cure called the Pan-Immunity Virion Project. It basically meant evolution through infection. Experiments were carried out by a defense contractor called Westtech at their research facility in Southern California. In 2075, the Pan-Immunity Virion was renamed the Forced Evolutionary Virus, or FEV for short. This virus could change the subject's DNA to whatever Westtech or the government wished. Tests were initially carried out on small animals, with them showing an increase in size and...
Bro, it's never good when they're making tests on small animals. Just ask Fauci. That's terrible. Well, don't ask Fauci because they'll lie to you.
Aggression. But in 2077, the military moved Westtech experimentation on FEV to the Mariposa military base in California and began their testing on human subjects, with Westtech researchers in disagreement. Despite this, the tests were a success, and the US military were on the verge of creating super soldiers. But the strain of FEV used in Vault 87 was a different strain of the FEV virus known as the EEP strain.
So it created super mutants? I thought that was created over there in, like, California.
Refers to evolutionary experimentation program. This is something that goes all the way back to the early Fallout games, but let's stay on track. According to terminal entries from one of the researchers, 93 Vault 87 residents have died, with only 4 of those deaths being from natural causes and 87 being unexplained or undefined. On Dr. Merrick's terminal, he notes that subject exposure to the FEV is showing promise, and that their 5 subjects consist of 2 males and 3 females. He notes that they are facing pressure from Vault-Tec and the military at Mariposa, where the FEV was initially created. Later, Dr. Merrick noted that the subjects were exhibiting physical changes, with the females losing their visible female indicators and transforming to an asexual state, as well as muscle formation and upper body strength. The male subjects underwent transformations to this state too. However,
yeah, so they basically became orcs from Warhammer. That's what happened. Yeah, Fallout is basically just a toned-down Warhammer in the nuclear apocalypse, which is really cool. You can definitely see a lot of similarities with, like, Space Marines and power armor, stuff like that.
Subjects began to die. One subject, Mary, died as a result of massive loss of brain function. They continued to observe and discovered that their skin thickened and was more resilient. It's noted that the FEV was modified in order for the strain to do exactly that. But later, Dr. Merrick writes about how the subjects deteriorated, having become angry and anxious. So due to the danger posed to everyone inside the facility, Dr. Merrick had them all destroyed. And as you can imagine, these experiments didn't work out well for the rest of the Vault dwellers and the research staff, as they all ended up dead or worse. Essentially, ever since 2078, the super mutants in the Capital Wasteland have originated from this vault. They haven't survived through natural reproduction, as they're asexual and sterile. So instead, they drag humans, such as poor Sid, back to Vault 87.
I completely forgot that they were just, like, creating more super mutants.
And infect them with FEV, turning them into super mutants. And of course, these super mutants continue to mutate as they age, and they will eventually turn into super mutant behemoths. One particular super mutant named Fawkes, referring to himself as a metahuman instead, shows signs of intelligence. He said he was born out of the FEV chambers, hence his Vault jumpsuit. He remarks that he still remembers various glimpses of his past. However, he doesn't remember exactly who he was. He gained his intelligence by reading information on a terminal inside an observation chamber, which the super mutants duly destroyed. He learned about history, hence why he called himself Fawkes. Due to his intelligence and his tendency for non-violence towards humans, he is either despised by his fellow muties, or they are fascinated by him, and as a result the super mutants locked him up in an observation room inside Vault 87, until he is either killed or freed by the Lone Wanderer.
Yeah, Fox is awesome, man. Like, I'd rather free him. I don't want him to be killed.
Now we move on to Vault 92. Vault 92 was a way to preserve musical talent, so the country's best musicians were invited to live inside the vault.
When the war reared its head, she was invited by Vault-Tec into Vault 92. They claimed the vault would be dedicated to preserving musical talent. Vault-Tec was always promoting the vaults being used for the preservation of the arts and all that nonsense. Hilda couldn't pass on a chance to meet many of the other musical talents of the world, so she accepted their invitation. Then the bombs fell, the vault was sealed, and my family never heard from her again.
According to the vault records
Damn.
in the Citadel, 92 was designed to hold 245 people, and it was intended for a duration of 100 years. In order to facilitate and to keep the musicians musically sharp, they were...
Dude, imagine throwing a bunch of people who entire lives are based on recognition by an audience, and you're full of a bunch of people who are trying to garner an audience. Yeah, imagine how that's gonna go. And there's nobody else there, and everybody's trying to be the best.
provided with equipment, the finest instruments, and the equipment to be able to record.
Dude, I bet that it degraded into violence very, very quickly, did it not? I bet it did.
But like the other vaults, this vault was for something way, way darker.
Oh,
the vault
shit.
overseer, a Richard Rubin, began exacting the experiment, the white noise mind suggestion combat
no.
experimentation.
That sounds terrible. That sounds like that they were driven insane.
As the name suggests, Rubin would emit white noise with the aim of implanting combat instructions into the minds of human subjects.
Trying to mind control them, like the CIA was trying to do with a lot of people in the CIA, and including Charles Manson.
First, through the isolated recording booths that the musicians were.
They should have just tried it with LSD. Apparently, that worked quite a bit. Actually, it worked pretty well.
Playing in. The overall aim was to see if they could create super soldiers who fight hard and who would be hard to put down, such was their ferocity in battle. Despite all the dark goings on in the background, one musician, Hilda, fell in love with the engineer for the recording studio, Parker. Overseer Rubin, along with the Professor Malleus, started to expand on the experiments and started to play the white noise through the main sound system in the studios, disguising it via music. People would notice, such as Parker, and he writes that he's hearing a strange, odd pitch overlaying the music.
I've been encouraged by the latest batch of data. It seems that 33% of the subjects are now lapsing into a trance-like state on occasion. When in this state, we're fairly certain that suggestion and programming of the subject can be applied. We've begun testing this by implanting subtle cues in affected subjects, making them scratch their ear or constantly fix their hair. So far, I'm happy to report a 100% success rate on this
That's
implementation method.
The experiments were going pretty well until Professor Malleus realized what was happening to the subjects. They were going insane and murdering other vault dwellers.
Yep, see, I knew it. It always devolves into chaos and people start murdering each other. Yep, every time.
Malleus soon learned that Rubin knew that this would turn the subjects violent, as the combat suggestions were directly from Vault Tech, and he begged Rubin to stop the experiment. However, Malleus was physically assaulted by Rubin's security forces every time he tried and see him. But Rubin, as detailed in the Overseer's logs, was determined to push on. Malleus was taken off the project, and Rubin also drew the ire of the person in charge of the supply store, Gordy, as Rubin had banned the distribution of anything that could potentially drown out the white noise, such as headphones. We get a glimpse into the mental deterioration of the subjects through Zoe
Just gonna force people to listen to it.
Hammerstein's journals. First, she was ecstatic to be surrounded by so many accomplished musicians, but then she went to the vault doctor, reported her symptoms, with the doctor saying it's probably stress. Her writings then devolved into the ramblings of a crazy person. Rubin then advanced the experiment, now playing the white noise inside the dormitories of the residents in order to expose them while they were sleeping. But it wasn't just the white noise that was making the vault an inhospitable place. The location of the vault being in close proximity.
Dude, so far this is the worst one. So far this is the worst vault. Like, this would be absolute hell to deal with, especially if you're one of the people who knows what's going on and you just can't do anything about it.
To underground bodies of water meant that pipes began corroding, leaks began to spring, leading to the engineers having to work overtime to try and fix them. The insanity spread and the residents ended up killing each other. Malleus had had enough. He incited an uprising and went to confront Rubin, but it's not exactly known what happened to both of them. With the vault in a state of disrepair, the vault flooded, including the reactor room, and creatures such as Mirelurks would enter the vault and make it a nest. Hilda and Parker, it seems, died together, with Hilda leaving behind her perfectly preserved Swal Stradivarius violin. Hilda's ancestor, Agatha, lives in the capital wasteland, and the Lone Wanderer can deliver her great-grandmother's violin to her.
Oh, how nice.
In terms of Vault 106, this vault consisted of 95 subjects and 12 researchers, and the experiment inside was to take place for the duration of 12 years and 3 months. The overseer was a Dr. Albert Leris, who worked in Vault-Tec's psychological research department, and the information surrounding the results were redacted. 10 days after the vault was sealed, the experiment began. Psychoactive drugs were to be pumped into the vault. Judging from a memo from the vault's overseer, he tried to play it down.
Dude, the vaults in Fallout 3 are absolutely insane. They might be the worst ones. I don't know what the vaults are like in Fallout 2, so I don't know. In Fallout 1, I'll have to do a deep dive on those, what the vaults were like. You know, I probably should have done that before, but I'll probably get back into it. Maybe Fallout New Vegas got some worse ones. We're definitely going to be getting into those soon.
As a fault with the air filtration system, which has since been fixed. Over the overseer's terminal, we see that the gas had only been referred to as the control, and that they are prepared for the worst. Then, at 3:30 in the afternoon, the gas was released, and the security forces were advised to go to pre-selected safe zones in order to be spared the effects of the gas. The overseer, however, explicitly states that the effects of the gas are non-lethal, and that the gas will be cleared out by 4 o'clock. It's likely that the insane survivors inside the vault are raiders or wastelanders who ventured inside looking for loot and supplies, and due to the gas went insane just like the residents of the vault, thought they were members of the vault, hence why they are wearing vault jumpsuits. Tragically, it seems that some of the original vault dwellers tried to blow themselves away out of the vault to escape the insanity, but ended up dying in the process. And that's pretty much it for the story behind Vault 106, a pretty basic one. When the Lone Wanderer visits the vault, the gas is still being distributed into the vault, as the Lone Wanderer experiences hallucinations of their own time in Vault 101.
I remember that place. That place was creepy.
And finally, onto our last
Vault
vault.
108.
And this is probably the most bizarre one. The Gary Vault,
awesome.
or Vault 108.
Oh, yeah.
As mentioned earlier, Vault 108 suffered a work stoppage
I remember this one. This one is actually insane.
in its construction, but was
It might be one of my favorite vaults in the entire Fallout series, though.
eventually completed in December 2069. The number of occupants was to be 475, and the duration of the experiment was meant to be 38 years, with the main power supply for the vault designed to fail within 20. The vault had a secondary power supply named the Steam Whistle, but that power supply couldn't power the entire vault at once. Now, the overseer was a Brody Jones. According to the Citadel's vault records, Jones had a genetic disposition to a rare terminal strain of cancer, and he'd die in just over 3 years. Despite there being 475 spaces for residents, these were intentionally left empty, and the vault was overstocked with weaponry. As for the experiment,
Cool. Perfect for a Fallout game, you know. Stocked full of things that you can loot. I love loot.
here goes. The Overseer dying was initially planned out for an experiment in order to see what would happen when, after the Overseer died, how the tussle for leadership would play out. Conflicts in leadership. It's my guess that after the Overseer died, Vault-Tec hoped that a civil war would break out in the Vault, although we don't know if that happened. But
No, I'm pretty sure it went the way of religion. That's what I'm going to say. It was a cult. The cult of Gary's.
now for the really bizarre part. The scientists inside the Vault started cloning experiments.
Oh shit.
But it seems that
What?
this was nothing to do with the initial Vault-Tec experiment.
I forgot that they were all clones. Okay. I thought they were all just people that thought that their name was Gary. I misremembered this so bad.
Clones produced were all copies of a man named Gary, a resident of the Vault from 2077 onwards until his death. By the time the Lone Wanderer gets to the Vault, it appears that 54 Gary
That is pretty clever. That is pretty funny. That's so like 2000s humor, you know what I mean?
clones had been created, and a log, presumably written by a scientist, states that the later Garys were hostile towards anyone who wasn't a clone, with Garys becoming more and more hostile and aggressive with each version. This could be because they may have been cloning cloned Garys. 52 Garys were to be disposed of, but it seems that this
Making clones of clones of clones. Yeah, that can go wrong. I can see how that goes sideways real fast.
never happened, as many of these previous Garys are still wandering around the Vault, meaning a revolt happened and they killed the scientists who were trying to kill them. The Gary clones also only say one thing.
Gary!
Indicating that they don't know or speak English at all. Now, these clones may have been produced in an attempt to spark the civil war inside the Vault, therefore kicking off the intended experiment, with the power struggle taking place and someone eventually taking leadership of the Vault itself. Or it could be that one of the higher-ups wanted their own army that were loyal to them in order to seize power in the Vault. Or maybe the
That's some straight up Star Wars shit if that's the case.
scientists got bored. Who knows? Let me know what you think below. As a side note, one of the Gary clones is found at Virtual Strategic Systems building after he was captured by the Brotherhood Outcasts. They wanted his Pip-Boy in order to access a simulation of Operation Anchorage so that they could access an armory inside of the building. An armory that contained some pretty rare and impressive tech.
Ooh.
But after they chopped Gary's arm off, they realized the subject needed to be alive and attached to the Pip-Boy in order for the simulation to work. But that pretty much brings this video to a close.
Sweet.
I enjoyed jumping back into Fallout 3
Same.
and can't wait to get into Fallout New Vegas next.
Yep.
Like I said, a Law & Order video for the story of Fallout 3 is available, so please check that out if you haven't already. But if you enjoyed this video, please show your support by leaving a like and subscribing if you aren't already. Leave a comment down below, but for now, take care, and I will see you in the next one.
Yep, we're gonna be moving on to Fallout New Vegas next, boy. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite Fallout game out of all of them. Fallout 3 is my second favorite. I haven't played Fallout 2 and Fallout 1 yet, so I can't say nothing about those. But out of the 3 big Fallouts from Bethesda, I'm not counting 76, New Vegas is my favorite one, and we're moving on to that one next. So like, comment, subscribe, ding the bell for all notifications.